The first time I saw her, I thought she was just another anthropologist from one of the fringe colonies. She moved with a grace that felt almost inhuman, her long limbs bending and stretching in ways that were elegant, precise, and strangely alien. Her eyes, though, were what unsettled me. They were too sharp, too probing, like she was not just observing me, but dissecting me, layer by layer, in ways I couldn't even articulate. Her name was Thalkira. I would come to learn that it was not merely a name, but a key to understanding her species, a species whose obsession with humans had reshaped galactic science in ways the Council of Stellar Knowledge had kept under wraps. I first met Thalkira on the research station Elysium Prime, orbiting a dying gas giant in the Voron Nebula. The station was one of those interstellar outposts designed to house dozens of species for the study of rare cosmic phenomena. I was there as part of a human delegation, studying the nebula's unusual quantum fluctuations. Thalkira had arrived in the same shuttle as our group, her presence immediately stirring curiosity and unease among the human scientists. Unlike most alien species I'd encountered, Thalkira did not speak with the static-laced, thought-modulated tones that most interspecies communicators relied on. Her voice was fluid, melodic, almost hypnotic, but carried an undercurrent of calculation that made every syllable feel like a carefully aimed probe. "Humans," she said the moment our introductions were over, her gaze sweeping across our delegation, lingering on me a second too long. "Your genome is extraordinary. Fragile, yes, but capable of adaptation that is almost poetic." I blinked, unsure how to respond. Humans had long believed themselves an unremarkable species, a young civilization scrambling for survival among older, more advanced species. Yet here was an alien, one of the Thrillians, renowned for their obsession with biological perfection, calling us poetic. It was the first hint that our understanding of our place in the galaxy was far too narrow. The weeks that followed were disorienting. Thalkira requested access to our genetic archives, specifically the sections detailing human DNA sequences, epigenetic variations, and recorded mutations over the past few centuries. Initially, the Council denied her. Humans were a sensitive subject. Yet she persisted. She would not leave, not until she had what she wanted. I was assigned as her liaison, which, in hindsight, may have been a grave mistake. Her fascination with human DNA was all-consuming. She would spend hours in the lab, eyes scanning sequences, her hands moving over holographic projections with unnerving precision. Occasionally, she would murmur to herself in a language none of us could decipher, her words low and musical, almost like a song. One night, I stayed late to observe her. I thought I might catch her making a mistake or, at least, reveal the purpose of her obsession. What I saw instead shocked me. She had a tiny, portable sequencer, barely larger than a human wrist. She was mapping our DNA against something else, something we couldn't see. When I asked her what she was doing, she didn't look at me. "You must understand," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "The human genome, it holds answers my species has sought for eons." "What answers?" I asked, my curiosity mingling with apprehension. She paused, finally meeting my eyes. There was an intensity there that made it hard to breathe. The key to adaptation, resilience, and evolution beyond the physical. You humans unknowingly carry within you the blueprint my species has been searching for. I laughed nervously. Evolution beyond the physical? You mean like consciousness transfer or immortality? Thalkira's gaze hardened.
Yes.
And more. It was then that she began to share fragments of her species' history, a story that sounded like myth until she provided proof. The Thrillians were once a species much like humans, fragile and short-lived. Their early civilization was decimated repeatedly by cosmic plagues, genetic collapse, and environmental catastrophes. But somewhere along the line, a faction discovered something remarkable. Certain sequences in primitive humans were uniquely resilient, capable of withstanding extreme mutational pressures. This sequence, she said, tapping her holographic projection of a human genome, is like a seed buried in time. It carries potential that our ancestors lost but your species preserved. The implications were staggering. Humans, she explained, were the key to Thrillian survival. Our DNA, with all its imperfections, contained patterns that could allow her species to overcome biological limitations, heal themselves at unprecedented rates, and even extend consciousness beyond physical decay. In short, humans had been carrying the Thrillian salvation unknowingly. "What do you want from us?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Are you saying you're going to use us?" Thalkira tilted her head. "Not use. Collaborate, if your species is willing." The next months were a whirlwind. Thalkira proposed joint research projects, combining Thrillian technology with human biology. At first, the Human Council resisted, fearful of alien influence. But the potential benefits were undeniable. Our scientists, myself included, began experimenting with hybrid genetic sequences, observing how Thrillian nanotech could repair DNA, enhance resilience, and even extend lifespan. The results were miraculous. Cells regenerated almost instantaneously. Age-related degeneration slowed to a crawl. Mutations that would normally be catastrophic instead triggered adaptive responses. Humanity, for the first time, began to glimpse a future in which our frailty was no longer a limitation. But there was a cost. Thalkira's obsession with human DNA was more than scientific. It was personal. She had an urgency that bordered on desperation, as if time itself were running out for her species. She rarely slept, rarely ate, and spent entire days in the lab, muttering to herself in that strange, melodic tongue. One evening, I confronted her. "You're pushing too hard," I said. "If you keep this up, you'll destroy yourself." Her eyes flickered with an emotion I hadn't seen before: fear. "I have no choice. My people are dying. I have seen the remnants of our worlds, empty husks where life used to flourish. If I fail, they will perish." Her admission shook me. I had expected arrogance, cold calculation, but not vulnerability. Thalkira was obsessed, yes, but not for personal gain. She sought the survival of her species, and humanity was the final piece of the puzzle. As our collaboration deepened, strange phenomena began to occur. Human subjects exposed to Thrillian nanotech and modified sequences reported heightened cognitive abilities, empathy, and even visions of alien landscapes, experiences that felt both real and symbolic. Our scientists struggled to explain it. Thalkira suggested that human DNA not only carried potential for physical adaptation, but also for consciousness expansion, allowing minds to interface with the broader universe in ways the Thrillians had once dreamed of, but never achieved. Then came the breakthrough. In a hidden lab deep within Elysium Prime, Thalkira revealed a device she had been constructing in secret. She called it the Genome Resonator. When activated, it could amplify the adaptive sequences in human DNA, triggering rapid evolution at both the physical and cognitive levels. She demonstrated it on a single human volunteer, myself included in a controlled trial. The results were instantaneous and undeniable. I could feel my perception expanding, my senses sharpening, my thoughts moving in ways I had never experienced. Colors seemed richer, patterns in matter and energy became clear, and I could sense the presence of distant celestial bodies as if they were extensions of my own mind. When I looked at Thalkira, I understood her obsession fully. She was not merely studying us. She was learning from us, evolving with us. The council, once skeptical, finally accepted the collaboration. Humanity and the Thrillians began a new era of coevolution. Joint settlements were established on distant worlds. Human DNA was carefully studied and shared under Thalkira's guidance, and Thrillian technology integrated into human medicine, science, and exploration. The two species, once separated by millennia of divergence, now moved toward a shared destiny. Yet, even in triumph, there were warnings. Thalkira often spoke of limits, of respect for the natural processes of life. She understood that evolution could be dangerous if forced too quickly, that adaptation without caution could lead to collapse. And she never allowed herself to become complacent, never allowed her obsession to fade. Years later, I asked her why humans of all species had been the key. She smiled, a rare and fleeting expression, and said, "Because you survived when you shouldn't have. Because your species, fragile and flawed, carried within it the essence of resilience. That is the secret my people sought for centuries. And now, you've taught us something even more important, that strength is not perfection, but persistence." For the first time, I understood. Thalkira's obsession had been about more than science. It had been about hope, about survival, about bridging the impossible gap between species through something as intimate and fundamental as DNA. Humans, in our chaos and imperfection, had become the galaxy's unlikely miracle. And Thalkira, she became the galaxy's most devoted student of human resilience, an alien who had learned that the smallest threads of life could unravel, or weave together, the fate of entire civilizations. As I watched her gaze out over the stars from the observation deck of Elysium Prime, I realized something profound. Humanity's story was not just ours. It was the blueprint for a future we had never imagined. And in Thalkira's obsession, we had found a bridge to something greater, something eternal. In the end, it was not domination, conquest, or superiority that defined the bond between our species. It was understanding. The understanding that life, in all its fragile, messy glory, could hold the key to salvation for even the oldest and most advanced civilizations. And that was the greatest secret of all. Years later, after decades of collaboration, the Human Thrillian Alliance had transformed entire sectors of the galaxy. Worlds once considered barren now bloomed with life, ecosystems carefully balanced with Thrillian bioengineering and human adaptability. Humanity was no longer fragile. Our species had learned to survive and thrive in ways even we had never imagined. Thalkira had become more than a scientist. She was a mentor, a guardian, and in many ways, a student of humanity itself. I watched her often in the observation chambers aboard Elysium Prime, staring into the stars with the same intensity she had shown when she first set eyes on human DNA. But now there was something different: peace, satisfaction, a quiet pride that seemed almost human. One evening, I joined her as she studied a holographic projection of a distant world, one we were preparing for colonization. The projection shimmered with the vibrant hues of flora and fauna we had carefully introduced, life forms designed to adapt in tandem with human settlers. "You know," I said cautiously, "when you first arrived, I never would have guessed that a species as precise as yours could be so obsessed with something as fragile as us." Thalkira's lips curved into a faint smile. "Fragile? Perhaps. But resilience is often hidden in the most unexpected forms. You humans, your fragility carries a strength my people spent millennia searching for." I nodded. "And you found it." Her gaze lingered on me, and then she turned back to the stars. "Found it?"
No.
"Learned it." Your species has taught us more than any library or experiment ever could. The sequence in your DNA, it was only part of the lesson. The rest, the persistence, the will to survive, the curiosity that drives you to explore and adapt, was something no genome could capture. I realized then that her obsession had been about more than genetics. It had been about connection, about understanding life in its entirety, and recognizing that even the smallest, most unassuming species could hold the key to survival, not just for themselves, but for others as well. A soft alert chimed in the background. She turned to it, and her expression shifted from contemplative to excited. "A new sequence has emerged," she whispered, almost to herself. "It's remarkable." "What is it?" I asked, drawn by her intensity. She shook her head, a trace of wonder in her voice. "It's human, and it's the next step. Evolution accelerated. Not forced, but guided. Your species is evolving in ways even I could not have predicted. This is the culmination of everything we've worked for." For a long moment, we stood in silence, staring at the holographic projection of spiraling DNA strands, each one glowing with potential. I could feel it too, a subtle shift in the atmosphere, a sense that something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. Life itself felt more vibrant, more connected, more aware. Finally, she spoke again, her voice softer now, almost reverent. "We were searching for a key for millennia, hoping to unlock survival. But the truth is, the key was never about control or domination or even perfection. It was about respect for life, for resilience, for the unpredictable beauty of existence. Humanity has reminded my species of something we almost forgot, that life, in all its imperfections, is extraordinary." I smiled, realizing she was right. In our chaos, our mistakes, our curiosity and stubbornness, humans had done something no thrilling experiment could. We had become teachers. "And what about you?" I asked quietly. "Will your species survive now?" She paused, her eyes reflecting the swirling nebula beyond the viewport. "We will survive," she said, "because we have learned humility. Because we have learned patience, and because we have learned from you. But more than that," she turned to me fully, her gaze unwavering, "we will thrive. And it is because of you, of humanity, that we understand what thriving truly means." I felt a profound sense of awe. For centuries, humans had believed themselves insignificant, a young, fragile species in a vast, uncaring galaxy. And yet here we were, teachers, collaborators, catalysts for the rebirth of an ancient civilization. Thalkira's voice broke the silence, once more. "Remember this. Strength is not found in perfection. It is found in persistence, in curiosity, in the courage to survive despite every obstacle. Your species carries the blueprint of hope, not just for yourselves, but for the universe. Never forget that." As she returned her gaze to the stars, I understood that this was more than the end of an experiment or a collaboration. It was the beginning of a new era, one in which humanity's resilience and ingenuity would echo across the galaxy, shaping civilizations and changing the course of life itself. And somewhere in the depths of space, Thalkira, once obsessed, relentless, unyielding, smiled. Not out of obsession, but out of recognition. The galaxy's secret had been revealed, and in the human spirit, it had found its truest form. We were no longer fragile. We were necessary. We were extraordinary. And in that knowledge, I felt a profound pride, one that no starship, no alien technology, no sequence of DNA could ever fully capture. Humanity's story was no longer just ours. It was a story of survival, of hope, and of connection. A story that would guide not just us, but countless species toward a future they could scarcely imagine. And Valkyra? She would be there, forever our student and our witness, the alien who had learned the greatest truth of all, that in humanity, the universe had discovered its most improbable miracle.